Dragon Ballers, if you're looking to buy Dragon Ball Super or One Piece sealed product, make sure to get 5% off using my link to Mystic TCG down in the description. You can also sell cards to them using their Facebook link, which is also down in the description. Yo, what's going on, One Piecers? Welcome back to another meta breakdown video. In today's video, we have two tournaments to cover. The first of which is the TCG con that took place over the weekend in Houston, and the other tournament is a 1K that took place in Maryland. And I do have the deck list for both these events, so we'll go over the top cut as well as some of the highest placing lists. If you guys are new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video, and let's jump right on into things. So the first event we are covering is the TCG con event in Houston. I do have the deck list courtesy of Eggman down in the description, so make sure to check those out. This was 125 players, the biggest event in America I believe we've had so far for One Piece. This was best of 1 Swiss and best of 3 top cut. First and foremost, got to give a huge shout out to my teammate Ryan, who took second place at this event. I'm looking at his deck profile here on the channel this week, so we'll go over the first place kid list in this video, but I will have his profile here on the channel hopefully this week. But yeah, so we have 2 green kid, and the finals is actually a green kid mirror match. No surprise there, kid's been one of the most popular decks in the set 1 One Piece format, so no big surprise there. 3 red Luffy though. Luffy seems doing a lot better on the American side of the game than it ever did in the Japanese side of the game, so that's a very interesting thing to see here. As more and more tournaments happen, we just see more and more Luffy doing well. 2 red Zoro, not much of a surprise, and then 1 blue Dofi. I think Dofi is still the deck that people just aren't sure if it's meta or rogue or just like not solved. I think there's so many different ways to build Dofi. I do also plan on having a Dofi list here on the channel as well that ended up getting top 16 in this event, so that should be interesting to look at too. But anyways, let's jump into the deck lists for this event that I want to go over. So we're going to start off by looking at the first place kid list from the TCG con in Houston. Again, all the deck lists for both events are down in the description. Specifically for TCG con though, shout out to Eggman for again making these deck lists available to everyone. Now look at this green kid list. This is the deck that I main pretty much all the time, so I definitely have a fair amount of experience with this. We're playing 3 Momo and 4 Bonnie as our, +1 1-drops or our starting 1-drops. And this is actually the same ratio that I play, and I really like the justification for this because if you do the math on opening a 1-drop that you want to see being either Momo or Bonnie, the odds are still really good even at playing 7, and that lets you, use your deck space for other things. Now, for anyone who is new to competitive card games, I think that might be a lot of players considering how new One Piece is. There's a resource called the Hyper Geometric Calculator, and what this is good for is helping us do math on seeing how consistent our deck is. So I want to go over this really quick. If you look up the hypergeometric calculator, you'll get a box like this where your population size is the size of your overall deck. So obviously in One Piece our deck size is 50. Number of successes within the population are the cards you want to hit. So in this particular scenario, we're talking about Bonnie and Momo. We want to open one of our 8 copies of those cards, assuming we're playing 4 and 4. And then our sample size, that's our hand that we draw in the beginning of the game, which is 5. And the number of successes in the sample is going to be 1. That's going to be the 1 copy of the card we want to draw out of our 8 in our 50 card deck. Now, I always look at X being greater than or equal to 1 because if we draw more than 1, that's fine. If we draw 2 Bonnies, we're not going to be upset about that. So about 60% to draw one of those cards if we play 8 in our deck. Now, if we change that to 7, that goes down to about 55%. So it is a 5% loss, but I don't know, it's tough to say 5% is not a lot because over a long tournament it can definitely add up. It can definitely make your odds of seeing your 1-drops worse, but I really do like playing 3 Momo because it opens up a lot of deck space to other cards. So I wanted to go over the hypergeometric calculator for anyone who might just be brand new to competitive card games. I think it's a pretty good resource to use to check the consistency of your deck. But besides that, I think it's really important to just see how you want to build your deck and how consistent it can be. But anyways, going along through the rest of this deck, we have the classic stuff with the law. We have the 2 killer, just kill a 3-drop or less, which is important against the red matchup, kill their Zoros, bounce it back to hand. We have Okiku and 2 Raizo. I love Raizo. I love when a green deck plays Raizo because we don't see it in every kid list. I think it's such a solid card for generating you draw power, which is something that this game definitely tends to lack. And then going towards like the sort of boss monster lineup, we have 2 Basil, 3 Kid, 7-drop blocker, and 3 8-drop Kid. I think this is a solid lineup. I personally don't think I'd ever play less than 3 Basil. In every mirror match I play, in every matchup I play that's not blue, I guess, Basil is just like an MVP. Like, it's even great against purple. Just, you kind of have to stick it on turn 5. You can't really stick it much later than that, but that's why I want to play 3 Basil, because it's just so important in that matchup. Yeah, Basil just the ultimate board clear. I love that card. And now we see the first place kid list going back to playing 3/7 drop blocker, whereas a week or two ago, when we were looking at the PBG webcam case tournament, the topping or highest placing kid lists did not play the 7-drop blocker. So it's always an interesting dynamic to see how these things change up from week to week. I think the 7-drop blocker is great. Its only bad matchup is probably blue. So yeah, I like the inclusion of it, but yeah, super interesting to see it here. And then for our event lineup, 2 Paradise Waterfall, 1 Straw Sword. Man, this card makes me wish so badly this game had a sideboarding best of 3 option, because Straw Sword would be the best side deck card. Like, play against purple, tap your queen, I'm attacking through that. Like, that would be so good. It's super awkward to main board it, but of course you can get away with maining the 1 copy, and then if you see it in a clutch scenario, you see it in a clutch scenario. But anyways, let's look at the highest placing Luffy list. So going through this, we are seeing a solid amount of 1-drops. Makes a lot of sense. Nami, the equipping Nami, makes a ton of sense in Luffy, because you're just making use of all the rest of Dawn possible in this particular deck. Going through here, the 6-drop promo Luffy is also a pretty interesting inclusion. By giving him 2 Dawn, he gains Rush. So that brings him to 9k. And you're giving him that Dawn without having to commit any of your extra active Dawn. Of course, if you have the leader ability and you're equipping Nami in play, that's a very powerful 9k battle card there, which is going to swing into most things and kill them, or just swing into your opponent and probably do a damage. And now the one interesting thing here is that we don't see any Diablo Jambe, which I guess probably isn't super important in this build. I don't know. It's just a card in red that I see some people like swear by, but other people just don't feel the justification to main it, and I get it. I mean, your 5-drop Luffy just ignores blockers anyway. Your Shanks ignores low-cost blockers, but then your cards like your Rush Zoros and your 6-drop promo Luffys don't ignore blockers. So it's like, do you want the one of Jambe for that? I mean, it's hard to say, of course. And then we have 3 copies of In 2 Years and 4 copies of Jet Pistol, paired with our 4 Otamos and 2 Trafalgar Laws, the film promo that gives a card -2. And I love this combo as well, because Law, for 8 Dawn, you're killing anything that's 8k or less, but you're also establishing a 5k body, which I think is pretty important here. So yeah, this list looks pretty solid. Going along to the first or the highest placing Zoro list, we have again, very similar lineup of 1-drops. Equipping Nami is one that I've seen in less and less Zoro builds, but I think it's still good, especially if you're going to play Rush Sanji. It's really important to get those 2 Dons under him, because you don't really want to play Rush Sanji on 2 and then just like not swing at them, because then what's the point of giving him Rush, right? Or yeah, what's the point of him even having Rush? So you want to play Rush Sanji on like turn 3 or 3 Dawn, where you can at least equip 2 Dawn to him, and your equipping Nami is going to help us do that. So that makes sense there. 4 Shanks definitely seems like a very thick lineup, but I know a lot of players have this playstyle in red where they just slam a boss card like Shanks inactive, maybe leave it inactive for a turn, and it just answers any character card they play throughout the rest of that game. Like 8-drop Kid, your killers, your Capones are super ineffective, and we're just going to swing right through that thing. If you can, of course, Tama Jet Pistol. But that's just one example, right? Now for the events, we do see 2 Diablo Jambe, even 2 as opposed to the Sacred One of, which is super interesting. Getting all your cards around those blockers is honestly just game winning sometimes, and it's just a matter of like, do you want to play the Diablo Jambe and unfortunately sometimes dead draw it, or just hope to draw it at the perfect times when you need it? And that's what this player chose to do. 3 Red Hawk, incredible defensive card, but also is great for popping blockers. Like, the majority of things on your opponent's board that's going to be below 4k are probably their 1 and 2 cost blockers. Of course, sometimes like a Nico Robin or something along those lines. But yeah, having Red Hawk just to get a high counter power and then pop a blocker is, of course, going to be really good. And then we have 1 Dofi. I love seeing a Dofi top here because I love playing this deck. It's my second favorite deck next to Kid. Probably my most favorite deck in the casual sense. But anyways, taking a look here, we have the 4 Perona. I'm glad to see this because we've been seeing a lot of lists play like no Perona or 3 Perona. Maybe I shouldn't say a lot of lists, but some really interesting lists for sure, not playing maximum Perona. And I think next set we get a Dofi 1-drop. That's basically just an upgraded Perona. So I think that's just going to be a staple in a deck like this if people continue to play Dofi. Going through though, I am noticing 4 Kuma and no Pacifistas, either no vanilla Pacifistas that hit for 6k or even the blocker Pacifistas. I definitely find that super interesting. So this build is just playing Kuma as simply a target to play off the leader and not as anything else. I don't necessarily love that because I want to punish my opponent for attacking my Kuma. So yeah, something interesting that I've noticed. But Virgo is something I've noticed a lot in very successful blue lists as well, and it's one that I need to find room to put into my deck, because that 5/7 number is just so good. And then we have 2 7-drop Dofis and 4 9-drop Mihawks. I still think it's very hard to play this many Mihawks and 4 Love Mellows. Maybe, I don't know, my list plays no Love Mellow because I lean heavily into Mihawk, and maybe that's just crazy of me. But yeah, this seems like a very hard number to justify, because at any point if you have to play Mihawk and you have like more than 1 Mellow in your hand, it just doesn't do anything, which is a really rough feeling. But still, congrats to all these players. Let's move on to the next event. Alrighty, next event we're going over is the Level Up Games Maryland 1K, which is 46 players, best of 1. We have 3 Red Zoro taking up a huge majority of this top cut. We have 1 Purple Kaido and 1 Blue Purple Kaido. Now, super interesting stuff here. Blue Purple Kaido is so similar to Purple Kaido, except you start at 1 less life. You have an alternative ramping option with your leader, and you have access to blue staples like Trafalgar Law 1-drop blocker, for example, which regular Purple Kaido does not have a 1-drop blocker. And of course, you could tech things like 9-drop Mihawk if you wanted to. But yeah, that's super interesting to see the different variants there. And then 1 Kid, 1 Red Green Law, and 1 Blue Dofi. Let's take a look at the deck lists. All right, so once again, we're taking a look at the highest placing list for each leader. These are all down in the description, so feel free to check them out. Going into the Zoro list, only 3 Otama. This is super interesting, and 1 loss. So we're a little bit less consistent on our Otama Jet Pistol plays, but of course the Otama Jet Pistol play is just less good in red because you're not Law. You can't bounce the Otama back to hand. That's a pretty rough one. The inclusion of 1 Sunny is super interesting. I know this card gets a lot better in set 2, but just 1 here is kind of funny. Scrolling along here, only 2 Nico Robin, super interesting as well. I thought a lot of red decks just wanted to play this on turn 2 to answer a lot of blockers, but maybe this list uses it more of like a end game utility to just where like, okay, my opponent wants to stick a bunch of blockers in the end game, I'm going to answer that with my Nico Robin, and now they better answer my Nico if they ever want to keep their blockers on board. That might be the dynamic going there. And then this one of Frankie is super interesting. This lets, I think this card or all your characters, this character can attack active mode characters, which is a super interesting tech. I wonder what specifically that was for. And then the event lineup, 1 in 2 years, 1 Diablo Jambe, again, just for the clutch scenarios where it's good. And then 1 round table, just swinging into anything. This is great against Kaido, actually, too, where you can drop their 10 and 12k battle character cards to super low power and just swing into them and get them off the board. So sometimes you got to play that board control route, and that card just helps you do that, which is super interesting. And then we have the highest placing kid list. So going through here, another similar ratio of the 3 Momo. Going through here, we do see the 3 Basil, which I am definitely a huge fan of. 1 Shocky, which is super funny. This is a 3-cost blocker that on play lets you play a Penguin, but do we play Penguin in this build? I don't think we do. So this is probably mostly just used for playing off the 8-drop kid, or I guess just casting for 3, or I guess also just playing off Law if you want an additional blocker. So something worth noting there. And then 1 Yamato SCR. This card I think is so hard to use well, but if it hits for damage, it is just backbreaking. Like, sending 2 of your opponent's life to the trash is just absolutely insane. But if your opponent has the adequate removal for it, or they have enough blockers, Yamato can feel like a pretty feels bad type of card to play. So I don't know how I quite feel about it. Going on to the highest placing Law list, we have a pretty classic lineup of 1-drops. Law is one build where I might just want to see 4 Momo, just because opening as many 1-drops as possible is just that important. But for the Momo here, do we actually have any Wano targets? I don't think we... Okay, we have Otama. We have Momo himself, but I don't think we see any other Wano targets, which is definitely super interesting that this player chose to play it. It just seems like a 1-drop at that point. Maybe you could find better options at this spot. I know I've seen some Lawless play like Cat Viper, some play Okiku, but yeah, this low number of Wano targets is definitely a super interesting thing to see. And then going along the rest of it seems pretty standard. I've seen a lot of Law decks play 1 Nico Robin, which, like, hey, do what you got to do. If it works out, it works out. Then we have Blue Purple Kaido. This might be the first one that's been covered in like an American tournament report, but anyways, we are playing 6 of the blocker Pacifista with 4 Kuma. Now, are we just doing anything besides hard casting Kuma? I think that's what we're doing, or hard casting Kuma. But that's super cool because I think that also works with your 10-drop Kaido. If you have Kuma on board and you have 10-drop Kaido, or play 10-drop Kaido, and you KO your own Kuma, you get to play a Pacifista. That's a really, really cool interaction there. And then besides that, we're not taking advantage of 1-drop Law like I thought we might have been, but we're actually taking advantage of the blue event cards, Desert Spada, and probably more importantly, Love Mellow, to get that draw power. So this is a super interesting list. This is not how I've seen blue purple Kaido played in the past, so definitely worth trying out if you're interested in this leader. And then we have one blue Dofi. Again, seems pretty streamlined. This time we are taking advantage of the Pacifista engine with the Kuma, so I'm definitely happy to see that. And then we have a base purple Kaido. Playing 2 ulti instead of playing 2 Jack, I think is also a really cool thing to look at, because you know, you're looking at a ramp where you don't pitch a card, but this ulti does not have any counter power, so it's always an interesting dynamic to see how the players choose to split that up. And then for our boss cards, 4 6-drop King, I think is a really great number, because curving into this off of Onigashima is just back-breaking against certain decks, like against green, pop their Okiku, which Okiku is actually kind of annoying for purple Kaido to rest any of your blockers, including your queen. 2 7-drop King, 1 9-drop Kaido, 4 10-drops. So this just looks like it's fully going into 10-drop. Just wants to play this thing as soon as possible with our 2 Brachio Bombers. Not the most ramp I've ever seen in a Kaido build, but still, like, we're ramping to that, we're playing that, and we're stabilizing off of 10-drop Kaido, or at least that seems to be the way it is in this build. But anyways, guys, that's what I got for you in today's video. Just some interesting stuff to look at with these deck lists. If you have any questions, do drop them down in the comments. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.